Hello, everyone. My name is Nadja, and I'm responsible for brand and content strategy at Gnosis. I'm really excited to be here today and talk a little bit about Futarchy and how prediction markets can be leveraged for decentralized governance. Yeah, oftentimes it's often really like after the fact that we realize how much harm can result from a decision that is made by key organizations such as nations, firms, cities, or clubs. And oftentimes before such a decision was made, there were actually people who knew about the consequences of such a decision, who knew that the decision will probably have very damaging consequences to it. But these people had no incentive to share their kind of expert or superior knowledge with the decision makers, nor were non-experts in any way induced to learn that these decisions were inferior. So there were no ways to actually incentivize people to share and inform decision makers about these consequences of the decision. And then most importantly, the people who made the decisions, they're often not even held accountable for the consequences of the decision if they turn out to be not as promised. And really kind of like an important contribution to the implementation of so many inefficient decisions that we face is that our information institutions, that can be universities, public relation teams, think tanks, forums, just in general state agencies or elite committees, they really often fail to incentivize people to acquire and share relevant information. And basically, based on this observation and also kind of inspired by the aggregation, by the information aggregation power of prediction markets, Robin Hanson, who's actually kind of the father of prediction markets and also professor of economics at George Mason University, he came up with this concept of Futarchy. And Futarchy basically is a form of governance where only those policies are accepted for which prediction markets clearly estimate that they will have the most positive kind of impact on society or on an organization or on a firm. But let's take a step back maybe. A lot of you might have not heard about the concept of prediction markets before. So let's go into this for a little bit. Some of you might know prediction markets are at the core of what we're doing at Gnosis. And a prediction market basically is a vehicle to aggregate information about the expected outcome of a future event. So let's say a prediction market, for example, could ask, will the New York L train under the East River reopen by July 2020? So who would be interested in this information, right? Who would create such a market? So this can be individuals and organizations who really need to have this information. In this case, for example, the Riders Alliance or the L Train Coalition, who really fight for public transparency about such a problem and about this progress of the project. The Riders Alliance, for example, is working with community groups and riders to find alternative transit routes for L train riders during the shutdown. So they would really benefit from this information if this would be publicly surfaced. So they would create such a prediction market funded with initial liquidity and then have market participants participate in this market and trade on the outcome of an event. So who would be incentivized to participate in this market? These are people that have some sort of superior knowledge about the question. So, for example, New York commuters who kind of see the progress of the construction site, enterprises, individuals who are located along the train route, or even people who know other people who are somewhat involved in this construction project. They all would have a direct incentive of trading in this prediction markets because if they predict correctly, they can make money, they can incur a profit. So how exactly does that work? So basically in a prediction market, all the participants get a set of outcome tokens that reflect all the possible outcomes on the question. Here, in this example, it's an easy one. We have 2 outcome tokens only, yes and no. And in a prediction market, the set of outcome tokens always has to cover all the possible outcomes so that they kind of add up to a possibility of 100%. You can see that nicely also in the graph here, where at the beginning, both of the outcome tokens are kind of at 50%. So trades are made, participants trade in this market, and the interesting thing is that the market price basically of the outcome tokens reflects or is kind of the best estimate of the probability of the event to occur. So let's say this prediction market pays out $1 for the winning outcome if you predicted correctly. And the yes outcome token is trading, for example, at 60 cents towards the end there. What does this mean? That means that the L train will open by 2020 with a 60% probability. So the market price in a prediction market is really a great way to see something about the probability of the event occurring. So how does a prediction market end? At some point, I mean, we will know what happens, right? At some point by July 2020, we will know whether the New York L train is open or not. So the prediction market basically gets this information by an oracle. In blockchain, an oracle is called something like a predefined source that captures real-world information and feeds it into the blockchain and therefore sets the outcome of an event. So once the event outcome is set, profit and loss is calculated. So those people, those market participants who correctly predicted, they make money, and those who predicted the wrong outcome, they lose money. So basically a prediction market is really gives the economic incentives for being right. So prediction market also really tackle a lot of the challenges that we face with traditional forecasting. So for example, if they efficiently aggregate really a variety of information and beliefs. Like in society or in general, the knowledge that we have is very dispersed. Like we're all these people in this room, like everyone has a different set of knowledge, right? Everyone has a different set of experience, which also leads us to completely different expectation that we have in terms of probabilities of future events. And these prediction markets, they're a really great way to kind of like aggregate this knowledge and kind of aggregate this dispersed knowledge, and they're a mechanism to weigh the different estimates of market participants and kind of put them into one number and really weigh them based on the individual information that people possess. They also provide an incentive for gathering truthful information, for revealing the truth, because money it is at stake here, right? So you really have to back up your prediction with a financial investment. So probably if you're not sure about the outcome, you might not even enter the market. Or if you're kind of thinking you're sure and then you continue predicting wrongly, you lose money, so eventually you will get out of the prediction market. So because of these economic incentives, people tend or are more likely to be truthful about what they believe and really show how strongly they believe it. Also, manipulation, active information manipulation in prediction markets is quite costly, because if you think about it, a manipulator must kind of have more money than every other knowledgeable person aside, because someone who is like really knowledgeable about the outcome, they will always make the opposite trade and kind of bring down the price. They will always try to accumulate more trading volume, convince more people of the actual outcome in order to adjust the price and fight or compensate for the manipulation. And then just as is if in any other market, prediction markets, they incorporate new information very, very quickly, basically as soon as it becomes available. So now that we have hopefully kind of understood the concept of prediction markets and kind of the many benefits, let's look at how prediction markets can be leveraged for Futarchy, or how Futarchy is really applied here. Yeah, Futarchy is basically prediction markets for governance, but how does it work? So Futarchy can be applied to many, many forms of organizations, but the first thing any organization has to do is kind of define a certain success metric in the beginning. So they have to ask themselves, what does success really mean for us? What do we want to achieve? Do we want to maximize for company revenue? Do we want to maximize for employee happiness? Or is it just, do we want to maximize the value of the token price? So this kind of value discussion has to start in the beginning. Then an organization sets up to prediction markets to kind of compare the performance on the success metric based on two different strategies. And at the end, really based on the market outcome of such a prediction market, there's a policy recommendation derived, or even really a decision made. So this all sounds quite abstract. Let's look at a really precise example. Let's apply Futarchy in a corporate environment. What we want to do in an organization, we definitely want to maximize for annual revenue. So we have two CEOs as an option here, Sarah or Colin, who could be CEO of our organization. So the question that the prediction market basically should lead us to is, should we hire Sarah or should we hire Colin as a CEO? The success metric, however, is the company revenue, the annual company revenue. So the market, the prediction market question would ask, what will the annual revenue be if we hire Colin, that is one prediction market, or if we hire Sarah as a CEO. We look at these two prediction markets, we compare these two, and we can clearly see that the expected annual revenue if Sarah is being hired as a CEO is higher than if Colin is being hired. So what does that mean? That means that our decision is made. We're going to hire Sarah as a CEO. Here's another way of picturing this, that Sarah is performing better in this conditional market. But what happens now to all the people who invested in Colin? So basically, since Colin has not outperformed Sarah, he performed worse than her, the decision has been made, he has not been hired. So all the tokens that has been bought for Colin, they're refunded to the investors. So the investment for Colin tokens is refunded, which means that, the Colin tokens have no value anymore. So what happens now with all the people and market participants who invested and correctly predicted that Sarah is going to lead to a higher revenue? Because right now we only have seen this conditional decision market, but we haven't seen really how people are going to have profits or losses based on this prediction market. This actually starts now. It starts from the decision time onwards, where this conditional Futarchy market will lead into a pure prediction market on that success metric. So now we're not comparing any markets anymore. Now the prediction, the question really, or the only forecast is going to be where is the annual revenue going to be with a company if Sarah is hired as CEO? So this really becomes the only forecast. And the market participants will then make money or lose money based on how well they predicted the actual company revenue. And then, once again, all the people who have invested in Colin, they're no longer participants in this market. So what you can really see here, I think that's one of the most interesting things, is that this is what I was talking before. So decision makers can really be held accountable for their decisions, right? Decision makers are very likely going to be as a market participant, acting as a market participant in a prediction market, so they will lose money if the consequence of their decision, very high revenue if Sarah is hired as a CEO, is not going to be true. Then they lose money. So I think this accountability part is very well reflected in this second prediction market on the success metric. Let's just go quickly and look at this in terms of tokens. I think you heard a little bit about blockchain, about how it works with trading cryptocurrencies. So basically, you have these two conditional markets for the two options. You have the outcome token Sarah as CEO, and you have the outcome token B, Colin as CEO. Those two outcome tokens then have each a child token, one for long positions that means that if you predict that the revenue is going to go up, so the prices go up, the price is going up, really similar to the stock market. Some of you might have seen this. And if you think that the revenue is going to go down, these are the short position child tokens. So if I now think that Sarah is really going to be leading to a higher revenue of the company, I invest in Sarah tokens, and I also keep the long position because I think the revenue is going to go up, and I'm going to sell the opposite token, the short position, reflecting that the revenue is going to go down. And since we have seen Sarah has then performed better in that market, all the Colin tokens are kind of out of the game, the investment is refunded, and Sarah's conditional prediction market translates into the prediction market on a success metric, where I basically by leveraging the position on the child tokens, make the correct revenue prediction on the annual company revenue. And based on that, my profit and losses are calculated. So why is all this why does it matter for blockchain and for the government space, this Futarchy model? So now we're slowly but surely moving into a decentralized world where everything is open and where there are so many, where there are open networks, so many participants. And it becomes really challenging to find good decision-making processes with these open networks. Obviously, if you know a small group of people, if you know like the 10 people you're going to have a decision with, that's fairly easy, right? But with an open network where you don't even know how many participants there are, or at least you're sure that it's going to be a large number, it's fairly difficult. So that is where Futarchy comes in as a tool to really be used for decentralized decision making, because Futarchy allows these networks to stay completely open. Everyone can take part in a prediction market. Everyone can kind of take part in this decision-making process and like voice their beliefs through an investment in a prediction market. And and the most important thing is they can actually also be held accountable. But the only thing that Futarchy doesn't spare you from, or using prediction market doesn't spare an organization from is really having this value discussion up front, right? Like defining the success metrics. So you've got to be sure that you know what does success really mean for you, what do you want to achieve, and you have to have this value discussion up front in order to make Futarchy also successful for your organization. But then once you have that, once you have the different strategies that are reflecting in these outcome tokens to tackle this optimization problem, prediction markets are actually a really, really efficient way to disperse the knowledge in society into one number, into one single price. Thank you. Yeah, this is good.
Hey, everyone.
Yeah, I want to make sure to leave time for questions. Yeah, maybe one question we have time for. Anyone? Yes, please. Yeah, so the initial liquidity of a market actually needs to be provided by the market creator themselves, so by these, people. So I can't give you like precise numbers, but obviously the more liquidity you give, the more traders you can power. So definitely, yeah, in the 50,000 to 500,000. Especially. Mm-hmm.
Okay, announce now. That's it.
Yes, please.
You can take one more. Yeah, we haven't told one. It's starting 1 to 1. We have time for this. Just be a stage runner.
Yes and no. I mean, it's obviously kind of also like up to the organization who they want to give this prediction market to. So there is a possibility that these prediction markets are internal. And then I think, as I showed in the second half, kind of like having this like prediction market on the success metric will always like lead to an accountability. So even if the decision was kind of like made wrongly, you can kind of learn from it, and the people who predicted that way have to pay the cost. Hmm?
What types of data are you using specifically for this prediction analysis?
So we're currently still in the process of, so we have built like a market interface and everything is on the blockchain, so completely decentralized. But since with prediction market, as you know, there's a direct incentive for trading with insider information, we definitely plan on having a KYC and know your customer and kind of collect the identities of the participants of the prediction. Now to just be sure.
Sorry, one more. I wanted to ask you, you mentioned market manipulation and how people, obviously people with a lot of money can do that in crypto today. And you mentioned, I saw on one of the slides that there are additional incentives to keep people from doing that within prediction markets. So I was wondering what those incentives might be.
I mean, additional incentive. Basically, the premise also that you might learn in finance is always if like the more noise trading there is in a financial market, actually the more accurate will be the price, because there's always going to be people that haven't. Let's say I want to manipulate a market and I put a lot of money in, but I'm not sure of the outcome. I know it's wrong, but you're 100% sure that it's actually right. So what you're going to do if you don't have enough money, you're going to like convince everyone in this room to put the most money that they have into this market to put the price down. And if that is then even not sufficient, then you are going to go out and even convince even more. So I think, in theory, but that's also something that we need to obviously test and experiment. In theory, it's actually proven that the more noise train, the more like manipulation there is, the more accurate will be the price at the very end.
All right. Thank you so much. I think that was our last question.